Hello everyone. Today we are going to do the market structure oligopoly. This is our last market structure. First we will discuss the introduction of the oligopoly. Actually the term oligopoly has been derived from two Greek words. What are they? First one is oligi, which means few. The second word is polion. Finally, attaching these two words, the two Greek words, it connected as oligopoly. So polion means sellers. So finally, what the oligopoly means is few sellers. Actually, in the oligopoly market, you can see few sellers. It can be around 2 to 10 sellers, right? Actually, we say it like a handful of sellers. We can calculate it by using your hand fingers only, right? Not more than that. It can deviate from 2 to 10 around. Thus, oligopoly is an abridged version of monopolistic competition. It is a competition among few big sellers, each one of them selling either homogeneous or heterogeneous products. So these sellers, the few sellers, can sell either homogeneous, identical products or different products. The features of oligopoly, these are the features. Few interdependent sellers. Interdependency is another feature of oligopoly. Standardized or differentiated oligopoly means that they are selling either homogeneous products if they are standardized. Differentiated oligopoly means they are selling heterogeneous products, different products. Restricted entry. Because of this structure having few sellers, there is some barriers to enter new sellers, right? And there is another special feature we call price rigidity. Actually, price rigidity means that price is stable for a long period of time. Examples for the oligopoly market structure we can see in our country also. Steel manufacturing companies, actually there are very few number of steel manufacturing companies, around 2 to 3 sometimes. Aluminium manufacturing companies, cement companies, fertilizer suppliers, petrol and car manufacturers, right? So why this oligopoly market structure emerge? What are the reasons behind the creation of oligopoly market structure? So factors that give rise to oligopoly are huge capital investment. Because of this feature, normally small companies can't enter to this oligopoly structure. Those who are having huge capital investment ability, that they only can have in this oligopoly structure. And also the few firms in the oligopoly structure may have economies of scales, and other companies, they cannot get these economies of scales in short term or sometimes long terms. Even some are getting oligopoly structure because of patent rights. Patent right means they have the only production ability legally. Control over certain materials, mergers and takeovers. Although sometimes the small firms can be entered to this market, but those who are having more power or more stable, established oligopoly firms will merge and take over when a new company enters. Then again there may be few companies. No chance to have a lot of companies or firms inside this oligopoly structure. So these are the features behind the oligopoly structure. There are various forms of oligopoly. First form is perfect and imperfect oligopolies. Actually, we can categorize the oligopoly firms as perfect or imperfect. If the product of the rival firm are homogeneous, we call it is perfect oligopoly. And if the product are differentiated or heterogeneous products they are selling, then we call such oligopolies as imperfect oligopolies. Or else we can categorize or form this oligopoly structure as open and close. So, if entry is open to new firms, it is termed as open oligopoly. And if the entry is strictly restricted, it is termed as closed oligopoly. The third formation is collusive oligopoly. If the firms under oligopoly market combine together instead of competing, it is known as collusive oligopoly. It's like a group. The firms all act as a group finally, then it named as collusive oligopoly. The collusive may take place in the form of a common agreement or an understanding between the firms. The fourth form is partial and full oligopoly. Partial oligopoly is formed when the dominant firm, which is the price leader, and all the other firms will follow the price leader's price, then we call partial oligopoly. If no firm acts as a price leader, it means that no price leader in the oligopoly structure, then we called it full oligopoly. The Cournot, still we are discussing the duopoly Cournot model. So sometimes, as I told you, sometimes it's called duopoly model, sometimes it's Cournot model. So this is developed by the French economist A. Cournot. It's named by his name actually. And it was introduced in 1830. Took the case of two mineral water springs situated side by side and owned by two firms A and B. So let's see what are the assumptions of Cournot models. Basically, there are two independent sellers. Second assumption, produce and sell a homogeneous product. It means identical, same product they are selling. Each seller faces a demand curve with constant negative slope. Cost of production is assumed to be zero. Each seller aims at obtaining maximum net revenue or profit. So these are the basic assumptions of Cournot model. So through this diagram, we can understand what the Cournot model is. Looking at this diagram, first I will explain how this to be interpreted. So in this diagram, this is the demand curve of this oligopoly market. M to D is the demand curve. As we said, according to the assumptions, it is negatively sloped demand curve, right? So MD represents the linear demand curve for the homogeneous products of this duopoly. Now suppose producer A, we will suppose just producer A and B are the duopolist here. So first we will see or assume that producer A is operating in the market and he views the whole market demand curve MD. Now first duopolist producer A, his demand curve is now MD. According to that, you can derive the MR curve like this, MR1. MR1. This MR curve. The marginal revenue curve of the producer A is MR1. Now he will equate marginal revenue with his marginal cost to maximize his profit. So as per the profit maximization rule, you know the rule is MR equal MC. So we have not draw the MC curve here. You know how it look like a right. So if you draw this, it like this. So the producer now find its profit maximizing point where MC equal MR, and it has reached to his equilibrium, which is attained at OQ. We will assume this is the profit maximizing point OQ. And it will fix price equal to, according to that OQ, price equal to P, right? So OP is his price level. Now suppose since there are two oligopolists, the next oligopolist, producer B, enters the market. Now he thinks his portion is ED. His demand curve is ED. And now his corresponding marginal revenue curve is MR2. MR2. With the MC being equal to 0 according to the assumptions, because of we are assuming here in this model that MC equals 0, he will also produce half of the QD, because OQ now already produced by the first seller. So the rest of the part, there is remaining portion Q to D of demand quantity, which is not provided by any seller. So from this portion, the second oligopolist may produce half of the QD. Half of the QD means where MR curve goes through this line. Because of that, he will produce QL. Q to L amount, that part, that portion will be produced by the second oligopolist where MR curve intersects x-axis. This reduces the price to P dash, which leads to total profits earned by producer B as rectangle QLKT, and for producer A it will get reduced from OPEQ, quantity of income, to OPTQ, because price now reduced to P dash. Because two firms are here, now the supply is higher. According to the demand and supply law, you know when the supply is higher, the price will go down. Price will go down. So this is the Cournot model simply, right? If I further describe this, faced with the situation, firm A adjusts its price and output to change quantity condition, right? Assuming that B will continue to supply 1/4, you can see if you divide this O to D area to 4 areas now, 4 portions, 4 equal portions, 1/4 means QL. QL of quantity, 1/4 of the market demand quantity will be produced by the second oligopolist. So A assume now 3/4 of the market available to him in order to maximize his profit. So A will supply half of this 3/4, because 3 portions are now remaining. From these 3 portions, he will provide half of the market. Finally, when you calculate the half of the 3/4, it will be equal to 3 divided by 8. 3/8, right? So this process goes on till both A and B have equal shares in the market and both change same price. 1/3 of market remain unsupplied. Finally, 1/3 of market will remain not supplied by any seller in this model. Because we know oligopoly market is also not a perfect market condition. Because of that, in this market structure, the whole market demand will not be maximized or attained finally. So this is the Cournot model in brief. So next we will discuss kinked demand curve. Actually, we explained or presented this model under non-collusive models as Sweezy model, right? This is also called kinked demand curve and most popular using this name, kinked demand curve, than Sweezy model. Actually, in many oligopolistic industries, prices remain sticky or inflexible for a long time even though the economic conditions change. Many explanations have been given for this price rigidity. We call this feature price rigidity, as when we are discussing the features of the oligopoly market structure. I also mentioned this feature price rigidity. The price rigidity means their price level not change for a long time. It is stable or inflexible, right? The feature we call price rigidity. So under oligopoly, and the most popular explanation is the Kinked demand curve hypothesis, which was given by an American economist, Paul Susi. That's why we call this model Susi model. So it is the best known model explaining relatively more satisfactorily the behavior of oligopolistic firms, why they are having price rigidity feature. So according to the Kinked demand curve hypothesis, the demand curve facing the oligopolist has a kink at the level of the prevailing price. When you see the graph, you may understand what is this. The kink is formed at the prevailing price level because the segment of the demand curve above the prevailing price level is highly elastic, and the segment of the demand curve below the price level is inelastic. So what you have to get finally is this. The demand curve above the prevailing price level is highly elastic, and the segment of the demand curve below the price level is inelastic. So in this diagram you can see what I mean, right? So Kinked demand curve is this actually. This is the demand curve. You can see this normal demand curve will be like this, negatively slope, straight line. But this line has a kink. This line has a kink from this area. So first portion, the first segment of the demand curve above the price level, this is the price level, above the price level is very elastic, and below the price level you can see it is inelastic. Inelastic means you may have a steep kind of demand curve. Therefore, this Susi model says that in the oligopoly market structure they will face Kinked demand curve, not a straight demand curve, right? Their demand curve is here, there is a kink. Why this is happening actually? When you look at the MR curve, the corresponding MR curve, look here, the MR curve has a drop from here. So dotted lines you can see here, they are facing MC curves, different MC curves, but their price level not change. It means actually their MC may be different, but their price level is not changing for a long time, right? So this is this small explanation, the brief explanation at your level for the Susi or Kinked demand curve. The figure shows a Kinked demand curve with the kink. The prevailing price of is OP and the firm produces and sells OQ output. The upper segment of the demand curve is relatively elastic and the lower segment is relatively inelastic. The differences in elasticities is due to the particular competitive reaction pattern assumed by Kinked demand curve hypothesis. The assumed pattern is each oligopolist believes that he lowers the price below the prevailing level, his competitors will follow him and accordingly lower their prices, whereas if he raises the price above the prevailing level, his competitor will not follow his increase in price. Actually, this is the reason why this kink happened. So, if you ask what is price rigidity, you can have this explanation for price rigidity. An oligopolist facing a kinked demand curve will have no incentive to raise its price or lower it. The oligopolist will not gain any larger share of the market by reducing his price below the prevailing level. And there will be a substantial reduction in sales if increasing the price above the prevailing level. Each oligopolist will adhere to the prevailing price, seeing no gain in changing the price level. That's the reason why in this structure the price levels are not changing. For an example, I'll give some example actually from the oligopoly structure in our country. You may have seen there are very few newspaper companies, newspaper printing companies. So normally the newspaper price levels are not much different. And they are not changing for a long time. The price levels are very stable for a long time. The reason why they know, because of they are facing Kinked type demand curve, no use of increasing or lowering price, because if they increase the price, it will give a chance to the other sellers, right? And also if they lowers the price, it will not follow by the other sellers. So it's better to remain in the prevailing price level. Then we will discuss collusive type models. So there are two collusive type models, the cartels and price leaderships. First we will look at the price leadership models. The price leadership is an alternative cooperative method used to avoid tough competition. Under this method, usually one firm sets a price and the other firms follow. So from among the market firms in this oligopoly structure, the one firm will stand as the leader and he sets the price and other firms will follow the price. The price leader firm would be the firm which is highly efficient, having low cost. So, according to that, we have three forms of price leaderships. The first type of price leadership is by low cost firm. Because of they are having most economies of scales, that firm to stand as the price leader of the oligopoly structure. The second type is dominant price leadership. It's depend on the power they have. Sometimes they may have patent powers, legal powers, government backup, right? According to that, they become the dominant firm throughout the other firms of the oligopoly structure, and they sets the price because of the dominance they have. The third type is barometric price leadership. Barometric price leadership is that the firm having a good reputation in the market usually sets the price. Actually, not because of the logo, not because of the dominance they have. It's like that firm stand as an index or barometer among the other firms. That's why we call it barometric price leadership. Then we will look at the final type of the model, cartels. Cartels. The cartel is an agreement between firms to restrict output and raise price because they are very interdependent when they are working as a group. So they discuss with each and they try to reduce their total output, combined output, and definitely according to the demand and supply theory, when the supply is lower, price would goes up. So by restricting the output, they will raise their price levels. The cartel tries to maximize joint profit finally. Their final objective of doing the or working in a cartel is to maximize their joint profit. This is the full cartel outcome. Cartels aim at market sharing or loose cartel. Actually, they are trying to distribute any losses even. If there are losses, they should distribute those losses as well as profits. Joint profit is maximized by setting MR equals MC1 equal MC2, and if there are more than these two companies or two firms in the structure, there may be further MCs, right? Actually, this type of cartels, sometimes those cartels or agreements between these firms in the oligopoly structure can be failed. So what are the reasons for these failures? Mistakes in the estimation of market demand is one reason. The second reason is errors in estimating the MC and CME's marginal cost. Slow process of cartel negotiation, cheating on quotas, strictness of negotiated price. It means the price may be very much rigid. Fear of government interference, fear of entry barriers, lack of freedom in innovations. So these reasons can be cause to failure of cartels, as well as sometimes these kind of cartels are favored by some people. The factors favoring collusion. Collusion means again cartels. So what another way we can say, what are the plus points, advantages favoring the cartels? Actually, few firms well known to each other, they can work together as a group, as a team. So they are not secretive. There are no any secrets between them. Then they are very they may be not very competitive, and they can easily face to the market. Similar production methods and average cost, and want to change price at the same time. Similar products, significant barriers to entry. When they work as a group, no one can enter to this market. So it's a very huge barrier when there is a collusion or collective agreement or kind of cartel in between these firms in the oligopoly structure. And also they will get stable market. It's another advantage of a cartel. And no government measure to curb collusion. Actually, if there is a cartel, government also have very few opportunities to interfere their cartels. So this is the end of the oligopoly structure lesson. So thank you very much.